I'll tell you what, in a property management company, let me just tell you, the only time people call you is to either bitch at you or fire you. That is it. Nobody ever calls. It's like the trash man. Nobody wants us, but they need us.
What's up, guys? I have an exciting guest for you today at the Blue Collar Boardroom. This man is one of the largest property management experts, real estate experts. He started off as an airline pilot, and one day 9/11 happened. He lost his job. He wanted to recession-proof his life, got into real estate, built a monster property management company, and did it with unconventional ways. What I love most about Steve is his approach, his brand, and the way that he's built a network. And he wants to show you how to build a network. I've invited him to speak at the Blue Collar American Dream Conference, talking about how home service contractors can connect more with property managers, how to approach a property manager, and how to create this network, this vibing strategic referral network that really you can connect through online communities, podcasts, and many new age tools. So Steve, welcome to the Blue Collar Boardroom. Glad to have you, bud. Appreciate you doing this.
Appreciate it, man. Looking forward to the event as well.
Hey, one of the coolest thing about your story to me is how, you started as an airline pilot. Maybe a lot of people don't know, but my granddad is an airline pilot. My uncle is an airline pilot. He flies private. And, they always were diversifying, getting into different things, investing into real estate. But, you decided one day that you were going to have a little bit more freedom than just somebody telling you how much you're worth, even if you were doing what you love most, which is flying.
Well, actually, I just to clarify, I still am an airline pilot. So all the things that you said I did, I did it, built the business while I was still an airline pilot flying.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, what I learned was, as a little kid, I only wanted to do one thing, and that was fly airplanes. I would look up in the sky, I would see these things and go, man, I want to do that. And I pursued that course. And I got hired at 25 years old as a major airline pilot. Had the best job in the world as far as I was concerned. It was the most safest and the most secure job. And then a day in history happened, which we all know of 9/11. And within 48 hours from that day, I ended up getting a furlough notice. And I was basically told, hey, thanks for playing, but we don't think we need you anymore. And so what I realized was that the safe, secure job that I thought I had was not very safe, and it was not very secure. And I was basically putting myself in a position that I could not control my destiny anymore. And so what I ended up doing is I ended up going into looking to see what I could do to support myself and my family if I could not get another job in the airline industry. And so what ended up happening was I looked towards something that I could control, because what that was for me is it made me realize that I was a small cog in a very big corporate wheel. Now, I love flying. Luckily, I never actually lost my job. I came within 30 numbers from the bottom of a 6,000 pilot seniority list. But what it taught me was that at any moment, what I do is expendable, and that I could be removed at any moment should the company see fit. If they downsize, if they go into bankruptcy, if they liquidate, whatever that happens, I could be removed from what I do. And so I started getting involved in real estate because that seemed like something that was more safe and secure. And I started buying investment properties. I bought some assets. I bought some houses, some apartments, and I started getting into that. And I started a management company for self-preservation of my own properties. And that is when the property management company kind of took off. I started getting coached and mentored from day one from a business coach. Had that business coach for 7 years. And during that 7 years, we scaled our company to over 1,000 properties, single-family properties that we managed, along with some multifamily in 3 different cities in Texas. We were the fastest growing property management company in the state of Texas at a certain point. And eventually we ended up scaling our business and exiting and selling our company to a larger company, which I am now a part of as a head of investor education for that new company that now controls my old company.
That, my friend, is why, hold on. That, my friend, is why I want you to talk to my home service contractors about, how to have an exit plan, how to play the
Yeah,
big game, and also, how to do what you love most. Because a lot of guys are like you. They like to get there and see a project get finished, and they want to see with their own hands, whether it's a remodeling project, a deck, or roof. Guys love the quality of doing good work. But sometimes being an entrepreneur means playing a completely different game. And
yeah.
so, I'm going to dig deep into this, but I think the biggest thing that guys want to know is when they approach a guy like you who owns multiple properties, multiple multifamily investment properties, who's connected to tons of different units. I mean, if there's 1,000 units in your network, as the authority for property management, there's probably hundreds of thousands of units with all your friends. And so,
Absolutely.
how would a roofer approach you to get their foot in the door? And some of the different contractors you've worked with in the past that you've given business to, how have they earned your business?
Well, I think first and foremost, you said something that's very important is that when you own a business like a roofing company, you're an entrepreneur. So chances are you got into this because you like something tangible like roofs and you like doing that job. What I learned as I started growing my company is it's all about relationships. And we all are sales and marketing. We're just selling and marketing something different. You may be selling and marketing a roof. I may be selling and marketing peace of mind that I'm going to manage someone's asset. Someone could be doing HVAC, but we're all selling and marketing something. And so what I learned was I had to become a good communicator or hire one. And I had to understand the relationship that goes on of how can I solve the problem of the person that I'm trying to attract. So, there's got to be a problem and there has to be a solution, right? For business to happen. So when it comes to roofers, when we'd have contractors come to us, well, let me back up. The first challenge is we never had people come to us. We would have to go out and find them. So just knocking on the door of a company in your local area is 99% more effective, and you will probably get the business from that management company or anyone you're doing business with just because you took that one word, which is action, and you actually went to them. Because I cannot tell you how many companies that we would call and we would try to give them business and they would not even show up for our meeting. And you're just like going, oh, how do they exist? How do they run their business? One guy would show up and we would give them our business just because by default, no one else would actually show up for the meeting, let alone sending them out on a job site. We had a great, successful relationship with all the contractors we did business with. And one of the biggest reasons I think we did is we always wanted to know, how can we benefit you? And you hear that term with them, what's in it for me? So I would always ask, okay, how can I be beneficial and share my vision as a property management company with this roofing company to make this win-win? So my answer to your question is if you can flip that script and you can walk into a property management company, a real estate company, anyone who's the gatekeeper of all these roofs essentially, and show them how you can benefit them and add value to what they're doing that could be a point of difference, that it could be the same thing that any roofing company does, but the fact that you are there as an expert and you are making them look better by solving a problem, I think that is hands down one of the best things you could do that costs you $0 to just knock on someone's door and have that conversation.
I 100% agree. And, one of the different ways that you've been able to get business over the years is be an attractive figure, build a network, add value to a community. And, property managers, insurance agents, realtors, they all hang in packs. And
Yeah.
a lot of times it's events and podcasting. And, you've done events in the past. And how have you best brought groups of people together to create business?
That's a good question. And I think that, when you say the word attractive character, I think some people think that, you've got to be on these stages and you've got to, learn how to do all this. I don't think you necessarily need to do all of that. I think you do need to be relationship based. Number one, you do need to learn to solve problems and you do need to get out there because, when it comes to roofing, and that is something that could make someone's investment property no longer be an investment property and can be a liability. Meaning if the roof collapses, because nobody was up there checking on the roof, that all of a sudden becomes a liability for the landlord and the management company. And now the tenants have to move out. You got to get the roof fixed, however many days that could be. You've got to put them up in a place. It causes a lot of problems. As an investor myself, one of the scariest things is a leak in the roof, because to someone like me that doesn't know roofing, when you see a leak coming, the first thing I think of is we have no idea where that leak's coming from. Like, it could be coming down any rafters, any beams, joists. We don't know. And how long has it been happening for? The fact that I'm barely seeing it now. So the value, I think, first of all, to add value to a property management company, to an investor, are doing simple things like offering free inspections to the property management companies for their clients. Now, we all know that when you do something like that, there is going to be business that's going to be had, right? But what you're doing is you're establishing relationships, and you are solving a bigger problem for the property management company. Now, when you go to events like a networking event, a lot of people, I think, that go to networking events, they walk around and they hand out these cards and they just, I'm a roofer, I'm a roofer, I'm a roofer. I would flip that and I would start asking questions like, what's the biggest challenge in roofing have you had before? So if you start asking these investors, like, have you ever had a problem with a roof that cost you money that maybe was preventable? And I would say probably 9 out of 10 people will say, yeah, I have had that problem. When it comes to, and it's not just when the hurricane comes through, roofing problems happen all the time in any type of climate, as we all know. It's just, how do you approach that conversation at these events? Just handing out cards, I don't think there's value in that. But actually giving someone something of value, I think, is much, much more important. And I think you will get much more business because of it.
Let me explain to you how we did it at one event. I paid for a sponsorship to a multifamily event where we had a guy that was an expert go speak on a panel. And on the panel, he may have been given advice on how to avoid unnecessary expense on a flat roof. He may have been given advice on a different one on what our value does for property value, and he, these insights weren't really anything about our business really. And it was just a group, a panel. You pay to sponsor the group. I think it was about $10,000. And then you get to speak up there on a panel of experts. It was a conference called IMN, and they have a lot of multifamily events. And this is pre-COVID. And so what I did to stand out is, of course, I had a booth and I had a friend. And this guy is like a ringer for George W. Bush. He's a professional. He looks just like him, and he dressed up just like George W. Bush. And he went there, and like people gawk at him. And so he goes there and talking like, hey, hey, hey. And he's literally shaking people's hands. And literally, he's a salesman. So that's what he's doing. He's saying, hey, what's going on? You got any roofs out there that need damage? These guys are RCA. They brought me out here. Yeah, it's presidential here. Come take a picture. You need your roof checked by these guys. But listen, it got their attention. It broke a little bit of obviously it was corny, and it cost me $5,000 to have the George Bush lookalike travel to my event, and $10,000 to sponsor it. But we got a multifamily deal. It was like a 4 or 5 property apartment complex, and it was from an investment group that depends on property managers. And so you service these guys. These guys own hundreds of roofs, and tell me, how does a contractor go and find these guys if it's a lot easier just to go to you and ask him where these guys are. Where are these guys, Steve?
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example. The company that bought my company, they are out of Silicon Valley, prop tech. And so I'm head of investor education for them now. And they manage 8,000 properties nationwide. So, it funnels out. I mean, if you just look at all the roofs out there in America, right? And you look at all the majority of those roofs are owned by investors. And you got to say, okay, who's the gatekeeper for all of those investors? Well, it's normally property management companies. So I don't need to talk to 1,000 owners. I can just talk to one property manager, and I can get in good with them. So I think, going back to what you said, from the business owner in me, I would say, well, what was the acquisition cost of those clients, and what is the lifetime of that client? Because yes, it cost you $15,000, but if you think about it, how much did you make because of it? And how much residual income did you make by more roofs and inspections and, getting them to repurchase? I think the biggest challenge a lot of business owners have, roofers and everyone, is we get the one business and we're constantly going off and looking for new business, as opposed to thinking, how can I get this person to buy from me again and again? And guess what? If this person likes what I do, who do they hang around with? Probably other investors. How can I get them to refer to me? So do I have some kind of referral program? You get a referral program, you start referring people. They say one client is worth 5.7 referrals statistically. So the biggest reason people don't get referrals, they just don't ask. Do you know anyone else that could use my services? It's really that simple. It sounds so dumb, but really that's all it takes to ask them. And I'm sure if you did a study and asked, is it in your script, or do you ask when you're done and you get a point of happiness where someone says, man, thanks so much, I appreciate it. That's when you ask.
There's no doubt about that. No, there's no doubt about that. And so, what's really cool to me is that, you were able to scale your business through, becoming an expert in a forum a lot of my contractors are unaware of. You're asking, where do these guys hang out? They hang out in online communities as well. And there's a podcast called what's the podcast and what's your role? And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm involved. There's an organization called Bigger Pockets, and Bigger Pockets is just to give you an idea, they are basically the 800-pound gorilla in real estate. So they have 2.3 million people on their website. They have about 230,000 followers on Instagram, maybe something equal on Facebook. And so I do a weekly show on Bigger Pockets. I go on live on Facebook and I go on there. And so again, these are people that, and let me just stop for a second and say that, some people may say, oh, I don't know how to do that. Well, let me tell you, being a pilot, they don't exactly teach you how to speak and market in flying school. This is something I had to learn. This is a skill. Everybody can learn it. And when, it's that Tony Robbins, when your should becomes a must, right? And so my back was up against the wall because I had to create a business to support my family. And you know what? Shit happens when you have to get things done. And so whenever someone tells me, oh, I could never do that, I'm like, you just haven't been up against the wall enough to have to do it. Maybe your life is too good, or maybe you don't need it, whatever the case is. But when your bank account is zero or -0, I guarantee you will get out there and start hustling. So for me to do all the things that I'm doing, like with Bigger Pockets, and I've been fortunate enough to speak around Australia on this subject, on property management. I was an expert there around the US. These are skills I had to learn. Anybody can learn what we're going to talk about at your event.
You built credibility. Let's talk about how you built credibility for yourself, how you got in front of all those eyeballs. I mean, you earned that position to get there. Obviously, you're a compelling speaker, great communicator, awesome story, got a great energy about you. But beyond that, you started by commenting and really kind of just educating in the group. Talk to them a little bit about that.
Yeah. That's a great point. So these forums, right? Bigger Pockets is one that comes to mind. There's a lot of them out there. There's local meetups. Everybody is starving for attention, right? And so, it's the old thing. When you sell, it's about you. When you educate, it's about them. You should always be the educator. So the way that we grew our business, one of the strategies we had is I would go into Bigger Pockets in the forums. I would never sell my services. They don't allow that, but I would go in there as an educator and I would just comment and educate people. And what happens is all of a sudden people start following you. They start asking you questions. They start realizing what market I was in. They would start referring people, or they would say, hey, I'm thinking of buying a property. Can I use you, or would you mind helping me? And you start becoming this level of education because I made it always about them. And if you can do that, and look, I would go in and say, I'm going to do 5 posts a day. Really simple, 5 posts a day. You can even put them in a Google Drive and copy and paste them in there if you want for the same comments. It's just a matter of being relevant, because I think in this industry, our biggest challenge as entrepreneurs in any business is obscurity. And the average person consumes 194 channels online. So if people tell me they're not even online, I'm like, that's like having a horse and buggy on, the NASCAR raceway. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So if you're going to be in business, you have to realize that you have to get into this world, because we are all sell and marketing, and we have to sell solutions. And by educating people, it's free. You become trusted, you become known. And we know the know, like, and trust is what is needed for a transaction to happen. And what I found, Lee, what's interesting is when people would come to me, they were already closed. They already had the trust. They already looked on my website. I used to push out at my company, I would probably push out 3 to 4 videos a week, every single week. I did them on my iPhone. You hear all the people telling me why they couldn't do it. I put them on my iPhone every single week. I pushed them out, and everything I did was educational. I solved the problem that I knew investors had. And if you do that, what I found is when people would come to me through all these different channels, I would say, well, why don't you go on our website? And you know what they would say? I already did. That's why I'm calling you. They already did their homework on me. They already knew all about me, and they knew who I was, what I did. They had already done their research. They just wanted to know, how do we sign up? So the closing part was very, very easy because I took the time to become the mass educator on the front end. And that I found it cost me $0, right? I mean, you do an ad for $15,000, that's it. The ad's done. This stuff lives forever, and it keeps giving and giving and giving. So for people that are trying to grow themselves, you don't have to be this highly prolific person, but you've got to be consistent. And that's what I found is the key.
Well, I want to encourage everybody to build a personal brand, because that's how Steve's been able to grow his brand. I mean, it started with, literally an urge to not be a slave to the system, even though he's doing what he loves to do and he's flying airplanes, investing in real estate, then becoming an expert, and then becoming the go-to guy property manager, and then selling his property management company, now being connected to 8,000 units personally, plus in front of millions of viewers. My idea is, what can I add to the audience? I'm going on the bigger podcast, Pockets podcast. What could a roofer add to the audience? If one of my audience members was to go on that podcast, what do you think would be a good thing to talk about?
Well, I think it's huge. I think you go in there as an educational model of saying, okay, what are some of the biggest expenses that you could incur? Roofing, obviously, is one of them. What is something that when you're buying a property, what are some things that I should be looking out for when I'm buying a roof? I mean, when I'm buying a property, what are some gotchas that I need to know? And what are some things that I don't need to know? As someone who's not a roofer, I can tell you that when I would, take investors to a property and they would sit there and say, oh, I'm going to re-roof that. I'm going to re-roof that property. And they're looking at it, and I would look at the roof and, I'd say, well, why are you doing that? And their answer is, well, it looks old. And my answer is, well, is it leaking, or is there structurally something wrong that the inspector found? No, I'm just going to re-roof it. I'm like, well, why don't you talk to a roofer and get their opinion? Because maybe you just need to patch it, or maybe it doesn't need anything because it's an investment. And if you put $1 in, you get $2 out. If you don't, and it's not needed, like legally, structurally to be sound, why would you do it? So there's a lot of things that people don't understand about roofing, and especially in the commercial world, but you get a lot of people that own apartments are not people that are out there doing it themselves. They don't understand.
No, Grant Cardone, whenever we were connected through Brad connected through Grant, and I sold Grant some roofs. He did never go through the insurance claims process or deal directly with any roofers before me. But whenever he got to know me, because I read his books and paid him lots of money, he got to know a lot of other roofers, and now roofers are some of his best clients. And the truth was, I educated him about how the whole process worked. And there's a lot of times where whenever you get to be that first person, you get to educate, you get the benefit of it. And, the one thing I can really take from this is we have this incredible value where a lot of times my guys are insurance restoration guys. They go to a guy like you and they say, hey, any old roof that you manage may have storm damage. We can check it for free, document it, give you a digital analysis. You may qualify for a roof paid for by the insurance company. You can go back to the owner. You can tell them that they're getting a new roof, that it's covered by the insurance company, that you got somebody to do it for the price that the insurance company allows. And, many times there'll be a property manager that already has that written into their contract that they're able to actually refer contractors. Yep. And so if I was to walk up to you and make a relationship with you long term, I might say, hey, how would I start that conversation about a referral relationship?
Well, I think there's many ways. Number one, it's asking questions, right? Trying to find out what are the challenges they have with roofing. Do they have any? Which every property management company, you need HVAC guys, you need roofers, you need all these things. One of the things that we used to do is, like I said, we used to we would actually give them the idea, and we'd say, hey, look, we'd like to bring you into our system. We'd like to make you the expert for us because you have a known and trusted name. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to offer our clients a free yearly roof inspection. because we all know things happen. We've got clients that live all over the country. As a matter of fact, 50 to 60% of our clients did not even live in Texas or in the United States. So they have no idea. Some of them have never even seen this property. It's just a mathematical number for them. They have no idea what's going on with it. If there's hail damage or there's some kind of damage, the tenant is not going to know this. So we would push this to the owner saying, look, it's a point of difference for me owning a property management company. If I'm getting a client saying, look, we can get you a yearly free roof inspection because insurance company could cover it. But more importantly, you could be in serious liability issues if you don't realize and something happens to that property and damages the tenant's stuff or caves in on the tenant or something, right? Leaking. We have the connections that we can do that. So what is that doing for the roofer is it's giving them potential business if they find something. And if not, they are getting out there and they're getting connected because most investors own 3 to 5 properties. So you ask yourself, if you do good with one, you may get into 3 to 5 properties and not counting referrals just from offering a free inspection of getting up on a roof. And, most property management companies manage properties in certain areas. They don't have to be in one day. This was a 1-year cycle. So we would schedule them out with the roofing company, and the roofing company loved it because they got a lot of business because most investors have no idea what's going on. I could tell you my properties, I haven't seen many of them for months, if not years, because I've got a property management company. I'm sure they're not climbing up on the roofs doing that. So just that alone, offering a free roof inspection, that's huge. And I know at the event, we're going to talk about some other things that we did to really kick up the ability to close people. But there are so many ways that you could do this. It's amazing.
Well, I think the main lesson is roofers need to understand how simple it is to just open the door to opportunity, reach out your hand, add value, get known. Breaking out of obscurity is what this is all about. Building a personal brand, working in, these new age tools like group forums and becoming not just a social networker in person at events, but also online. And that's really what it's hopefully going to encourage people to do is create more content, tell their story. And, Steve, what I'm really, really pumped about is hearing about, what you've been able to do as an entrepreneur. I want to hear about, the hard stuff, man. Can you talk me through some times where you felt like maybe you wanted to quit? Because some of my guys right now, it's wintertime. They're going through hard times. That, you sold your company, you exited, you're still, owning lots of properties. For someone who's going through hard times, what do you have to say to them?
Well, look, I think, and look, I've been through hard times. Like I said, the biggest punch to the face for me was when I was an employee with the airlines, and I got given my furlough notice, and the whole illusion of a safe, secure job was basically ripped away from me. And what was worse is that I realized that I was so specialized as being an airline pilot that I really didn't have the skill set to do anything else. And so it was like I couldn't even drive a commercial truck because I didn't have a license. I could fly a metal tube around in the sky, but I couldn't even drive a truck. So I will say that's a very, very humbling situation to be put in that situation. But what's interesting for me is from that day to today, I am constantly grinding to be better and better. And, I get up at 4 a.m. I go to the gym. I mean, I am on a mission to never, ever put myself in that position again. What's interesting is now we're in this COVID situation and, all these businesses are shutting down and all these things are happening. Same thing with the airlines. People are losing their jobs. People are getting furloughed. And I get a lot of people that will come up to me and they'll say, is this what happened to you back after 9/11? And I say, yeah, it is, except there's one difference. And they'll say, what's that? I'm like, about 20 years of hard work and experience and getting kicked in the face for 20 years and not giving up has caused me to be in a position now because of creating a business and learning and I had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And because of that, I am able to be in a much, much different mental position, a different financial position. And, look, we don't ride a unicorn over a rainbow every day to get to work, right? I mean, shit happens and it's not fun when things happen, especially when you own a business. You go, I'll tell you what, in a property management company, let me just tell you, the only time people call you is to either bitch at you or fire you. That is it. Nobody ever calls. It's like the trash man. Nobody wants us, but they need us. So at least for roofing, when you stop the water leaking in, people like you, right? For us, if we have to evict a tenant, they're pissed because we put the wrong tenant in. That no one's ever happy because we had 1,000 properties. So we had 1,000 tenants, we had 1,000 owners, and we had about 500 contractors. And every single person has a different definition of happiness. So when it comes to hard times, look, for some reason, we have this mindset or this assumption that life should be easy or that we deserve something. We don't deserve anything. I've been kicked in the face. I've been knocked down. I've been lied to. I've been stolen from, everything. But you know what? That's what happens when we make the decision to get the freedom of our own business and be an entrepreneur. And no one guarantees a freedom or anything like that. Look, bad things happen to good people all the time. And yes, it sucks to have problems with your business or lose your business. And as easy as it is to say, hey, there's a lesson here, you should learn that lesson. I get it's hard, but the reality is there's probably some red flags that happened along the way that you probably could have caught. Or, sometimes we get lazy. Look, we all do. But at some point, you got to take ownership. You got to be accountable. You got to be responsible and say, you know what? I got to own this. And what am I going to do next time? Because you know what? The sun is going to go down. The sun is going to come up. There are going to be good times. And I guarantee you there are going to be bad times. So the question is, do we all hide in the closet and crumble? Or do we say, you know what? I got to face this. I got to get up and I got to deal with it. And if it means, there's no such thing as bankruptcy jail, right? You lose your business. Okay. Yeah, it sucks. Get back up and do it again. It's very simple. And so a lot of times we have this, we've become very soft as people where I don't want to get into this whole motivation thing, but I have a hard time with people telling me what they deserve and what they need, but yet they're not willing to grind it out and do the work. I had to grind it out. I had to learn to be a marketer. I had to learn sales. I had to learn P&L statements. I had to learn everything. I didn't want to, but that was never a question. It wasn't like, oh, I don't want to do this. I shouldn't have to. It's like, you know what? That's life. You have to do this if you want to survive. If not, then you will fail like every other business. And so I get it sucks without a doubt, 100%. But look, I'm not the smartest guy in the world by any means, but I do work my ass off and I do not give up. And I think anyone else that is the same, they will break through it. It's not this magical break through the glass. I'm in this Disneyland world. I think what happens is all of a sudden you realize, holy shit, like I'm halfway up the hill. I can't even imagine this. I was down at the bottom and it was one step at a time and I'm here now. So I don't know if that helps answer it, but that's my opinion.
No, dude, that was epic. That was some fire. And, it's one part of the reason why I called on guys like Ed Milet, Randy Couture. I mean, Randy got brought here because, he's a mutual friend of ours through Zach because, he's going to talk about checking your ego at the door, being humble, always really looking at your peers and people in the network and people that you can learn from as an opportunity for iron to sharpen iron. And, we haven't really got into this, but, I know that you've had a coach your whole time. And just tell me what you think the value of going to these live events or getting coaching has been for your transformation.
Oh, I tell you what, if I were to put a dollar amount, I'm probably somewhere between $500,000 to $750,000 invested in coaching and personal development. I can tell you that I would not have lasted more than 6 months. And I'm not kidding you. I would not have lasted more than 6 months of opening our business if I didn't have a coach. I mean, and let me just say, when we had our coach, we would go every single week and we would talk to him and we would walk out there feeling this freaking big. And we got chewed out and he kept pushing us. And he's like, look, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to make you successful. And I always remember that. And he's like, look, if I'm nice, it means I'm being mean because I'm trying to give you something. And one thing I learned about him, this coach, I've had multiple coaches, obviously, but the one that we saw every week is he would always make us figure out the solution. And it used to drive me crazy because sometimes you're thinking, what am I paying you for? I'm paying you a lot of money. Give me the answer. And he would never give us the answer. And you know what? I probably would have never been able to build a business and sell it if I always went back to him for the answers. It was pretty smart, I got to say, at the end. But without a doubt, look, I look at it this way. Michael Jordan, to me, was probably the best athlete ever in history.
No doubt.
He had multiple coaches. he didn't have multiple coaches once he was professional. He had multiple coaches to become a professional and then probably got more coaches to keep it going. So if you look at someone like Michael Jordan, who's a professional, he practiced 8 hours a day, 6 days a week for one game. And you're saying, okay, well, was it because he was the best on the planet, or was it because of his coaches, or a combination thereof, right? Like Tiger Woods' coach, he's probably doesn't golf better than him, but you have a coach, and that coach is very specific in the vertical of what they're going to help. As you know, there's mental coaches, there's financial coaches, there's workout coaches. You're doing the boxing. There's different coaches that you have that are experts in their vertical. And I think that if you don't do that, I would say that you're being reckless and you're being selfish. And the reason I say you're being selfish, this is something, again, I'll go on a little rant here, is
please do keep ranting.
I think entrepreneurs can be very selfish as people. And the reason I say that is we learn all this stuff, right? We're listening to this podcast. We're going to these events. We're listening to people like me, Ed Milet, Brad, all these other people, right? So we learn all this information and then we hoard it. We actually don't share it with the family members or loved ones that we're trying to pass it down to. And we are responsible for them and the people that work for us. We're paying their paychecks. We owe it to them to share this. My job is to grow that company. If I'm not doing everything I can to win, like Michael Jordan and anyone else, that's selfish on my part, and it's lazy. And to me, it is selfish, and it is, I'm going to say, it's disrespectful for your loved ones, and it's disrespectful for the people who work for you, because they're putting their faith in you, saying, I'm expecting to get a paycheck because I trust you are going to take me to the promised land with the vision and the core values and the culture of your company. And if you are not doing everything that you can, which is going to someone who's been there, look, we all know that whatever got us to where we are in life, it's not going to get us here, right? Marshall Goldsmith wrote that great book, What Got You Here is Not going to get you there. So if we are not doing what it takes to get to the next level, then we may actually be the problem. And if you're going to be the problem, then you need to get out of the way, and you need to hire someone else that's willing to say, you know what, I will do whatever it takes. And sometimes we have to check our ego and our pride at the door, because we all know that that is the worst thing for business. And we have to say, I'm willing to be humble. I'm willing to be a servant. I'm willing to learn from someone who knows more than me.
I'm gonna tell you a funny story. It's not funny. It's just a part where you have a hard time asking for help. Well, I have a hard time asking for help. When I joined the Arte Syndicate, I paid a lot of money to join and get coaching from Ed. And the first meeting, we went to his house. And so, talking about checking your ego at the door, you walk up, $25 million house, lots of guys, successful people, sit down next to other successful people. Rob Dyrdek's behind me. We're talking. But everyone's going up to Ed. And I want to go up, shake hands, but I don't want to be the guy up there kissing ass and fighting over to talk. So you know what? I really didn't get a chance to have a good conversation with Ed. And I really regretted it, because, another time situation would happen, and it's hard to go up. And I felt the pain of the people that come to my events that want access, that have a hard time. So that's why every time I make eye contact, see anybody, I'm always inviting conversation. And finally, me and Ed connected, and I told him, how grateful I was for getting in the program and what he'd been doing to help. But, it's funny. We struck up a conversation. I told him that I needed his help to speak at this event. He agreed immediately. It's just funny that we're all going to be on one stage. And these roofers, the thing is like hiring a guy to help me get to the next point meant to go into somebody like Ed. But these roofers, I talked to them, the home service guys, I talked to them, contractors, remodelers, I would say 80% of them have never hired a coach. And then 80% of them, have never finished college, but they love their trade. They love their business. They love their family. And yet, when we say it's disrespectful, what we mean is that you're disrespecting the game. Like this baseball team, the Miami Marlins, blue collar conference at the Fountain Blue. It's going to be really, really nice. But they don't disrespect the baseball game. They take the way that they take batting practice, the way that they practice, the way that they show up. I mean, my son has a guy that's a major league scout, coaches him once a week. He's 6 years old, and he goes for an hour of individual coaching. During baseball season, it's 2 or 3 times, 4 times a week he's practicing. It's a lifelong of practice for these baseball players that it takes to get to the major league, to stay in the major league. And yet, what you're doing is you're not surrounding yourself around people that are gonna hold you accountable to the results that you should be getting for yourself. And so that's why we want to say, hey, look, draw the line in the sand. If you're frustrated about what's going on in America, come to Miami, March 12th, 13th. Steve's going to be talking, Randy, Brad, Ed, Myron. We're going to be helping you build your own personal brand. We're going to help you with, even though Steve was a pilot at one time and wasn't really, you wouldn't consider yourself a salesman back then, would you?
No, not at all.
And I can tell you right now, you're a heck of a salesman. You're an amazing communicator. And I tell you, the lesson I've learned here is that there's an unspoken, like crazy amount of opportunity just approaching property managers, giving them digital access to all their properties, free inspections, and offering a yearly inspection service for all the people in Steve's network. Steve's going to be at my event, which means you have the opportunity to collaborate with property managers and potentially, I'm going to get a chance to speak on his podcast. If you add enough value, if maybe you can network and you can help Steve and get in front of his audience as well. So, Steve, I'm telling you, I've really enjoyed this. It's been a great podcast. It's been some incredible gold nuggets. I'm reading a book. I want to talk to you a little bit about it. Myron Golden, he talks about success being like how lift works on an airplane, about how you have to fly under the wind. I don't know. I can't go through the whole analogy, but I've been reading a book called Flying into the Wind. Have you seen that one with the?
I have not.
It's the guy that is a PGA Tour pro and he's a fighter pilot. I think his name's Dan Rooney, and he's got 10 rules for life. And he just talks about a fighter pilot and how to get to the speed of sound, they had to remove the drag. They had to remove pieces of the airplane that were holding the plane back from breaking the speed of sound. And essentially, guys, contractors, there's always something that's holding them back. There's always, whether it's, it may not be about their business. It may be about their fitness. It may be about their mental condition. I can tell you that when you come to my event, we're going to not only cover the details of how you can grow your business, but how you can increase the quality of your life. Steve, are you married?
I am married. I got a son. And, let me something else I want to talk about too is, I always go off of the health, wealth, and relationship model. And I think of it as a three-legged stool. And so, we all know people that can be very wealthy and they die the day that they cash their big paychecks when they cash out and sell their business because of a heart attack, right? Or people that are lonely, right? And because they don't have anyone. So I agree. It is so important to you. I just want to, talk about that, a lot of the drag that you talked about, I would say it is majority is mental. It's the story that we tell ourselves as to why something won't happen based on a past experience that we're using that to make a future business decision. And so if we can clear out that clutter in our head and say, what if I just thought a different way? 70% of our thoughts are negative in our mind. So obviously, whenever we think of something that we're doing, especially if it's something new, we're always going to think on the negative side. But there's still a percentage that it could be good. But if you ever ask people like, hey, why don't you go to these networking events and why don't you get involved in these forums? They will always tell you all the reasons why it won't work. And so I do this all the time and I'll listen to them and I'll say, okay, so you've just told me all the reasons why it won't, but that wasn't my question. My question is why don't you do it? And, it's like goals, right? When I talk to people and I ask them, what are your goals? Like, why are you in real estate? Why do you own a business? I will always hear them tell me all the reasons what they don't want. I don't want to have a boss. I don't want a 9-to-5. I don't want this. I don't want that. And I sit there and I listen to them. And when they're done, I'll tell them, now, my question is what do you want? You just spent 5 minutes telling me what you don't want. So let's try this again and tell me why you're doing this and what you want. And what's interesting is you see that deer in the headlights where they think and they're like, you know what? I've never really thought about it that way. I've always done this because I'm going away from what I don't want, which, I think a lot of us do. Look, I'm not in a glass house. I don't, we all have our problems in the day. But at the end of the day, when I walk away from someone and they're telling me their challenges, I've got my own life. I've got my own challenges. I've got my own problems. I can, feel sorry for you and I can pat you on the back. But if you're telling me your business is wrong and I try to give you solutions and you tell me, no, you come to this conference and we give you all the tools that you need to succeed. Yes, you could walk out of this conference and say, yeah, that won't work because of this. Or you could say, you know what if I just tried that? What do I have to lose? I already know what worst case scenario is, but there is a best case. And so I think that when people come here, you need to have that white canvas, clean slate in your mind to really tell yourself, okay, what if I just went with this and just listened to what all these experts are telling me? And what if it worked? Like, wow, wouldn't that be interesting? And I think that's a mindset people have to come. They want to come here with that mindset.
Well, I can't wait to get you in the room with all these contractors. They're going to be picking your brain, and there's going to be a lot of iron sharpening iron. So how can these guys find you online? You mentioned the YouTube channel and Instagram.
Yeah, so they can follow me on Instagram, Rosenberg Steve. It's ROZENBERG Steve. I've got a website, steverosenberg.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel. And again, you can see all the stuff I do on Bigger Pockets. You can follow me. If anyone messages me, I always respond to people. I'm relentless. To me, it's respect. If somebody takes the time to ask me a question, I think it's only a matter of respect that I respond to them because they took the time for me. So I love helping people. I mean, I think that's the second half of my life, if you will, is trying to see how many people I can help have a better life and have a better position. Financially, I'm fine. I enjoy my life. I love what I do. I love helping people. So if I can help other people, then I feel complete and I can sleep well at night doing that.
Amen, brother. You've helped me a lot. There's been a lot of insight you've given me, that idea on that property management forum. A lot of those things came from that conversation we had at Hooters that day. So I'm very excited that we can get together, that we can execute on the game plan. Y'all have to check out the Bigger Podcast. I'm going to do an episode on the Bigger Pockets podcast. And guys, you got to join us. Click the link below inside the comments, Blue Collar American Dream Conference. It's going to be me, Steve, Ed Milet, Myron Golden, Randy Couture, and a host of badass contractors. So can't wait to see you there. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe, and we'll see you next time, Steve.
See you later. Thanks for having me.